I'm going to share some of the best road bikes you can buy for £1,000 or $1,000. There's no difference anymore, it seems. And some of the things to look out for and what you can expect on a bike of this price. Now, we all know that mid-range and top-end bikes have gone bananas when it comes to prices, but that £1,000 bracket is still really important to bike brands and to consumers. These bikes offer fantastic performance for road racing, for sporties, charity rides and grand fondos, and you can do a lot with these bikes as well. But before we dive in, what can you expect? Well, these days you can expect an aluminium, a carbon fibre frame if you're very lucky, and typically a Shimano group set, either a Sora, Tiagra, or if you're very lucky, a 105. Now, the way the world has gone over the last 10 or 20 years, you simply don't get as much for your money as you used to quite a few years ago. And here's a little story for you, skip ahead if you don't want to listen to it. Back in 2006, 2007, I reviewed a Focus KO, a German bike brand that was relatively unknown in the UK at the time. It's interesting for two reasons. The first is being sold online by Wiggle. So the idea of buying a bike online and having it delivered to your front door in a box was very new at the time. As we know, it's caught on pretty well. The other interesting point about this bike is the fact you got a full carbon frame and fork and most of a Shimano Ultegra 10-speed group set. They cut a few corners with a 105 front mech and brake calipers and a non-series crankset, but on paper, a lot of bike for the money. And that really represents and illustrates how much things have changed in the time since 2007, when the pound here in the UK was very strong against the dollar. So simply put, you don't quite get as much for your money as you used to. But that aside, despite the differences on specification, generally bikes these days are much better. Better frame, better components, better tyres, and generally better performance. So while on paper it doesn't look as good as it used to, I think it's fair to say bikes now are better. So with that in mind, let's dive in and take a look at some of the best bikes for £1,000. First up, we have a road bike from the biggest bike brand in the world, Giant Bicycles, and their Contend 1 SL, which on their website here in the UK is currently discounted from £1,200 to just over £1,000. And what that means is you get a Shimano 105 11-speed mechanical shifting group set on a really smart looking aluminium frame, making this, on paper at least, the best equipped bike in this video. To get this group set, which is one of the best group sets ever made, you can see my video on it linked down below in case you want to know what it's all about. It's really quite remarkable. But the only deviation from the Shimano group set are the Textro brake calipers, which is a shame not to have 105 brake calipers, but I'm sure they work just fine. You also get a carbon fibre seat post for a bit more seated comfort, so a nice thing on rough roads, and Giant's own wheels, which are tubeless ready, so really good upgrade path there, and a space with 30mm wide tyres on their bike, so great option for fitting some nice wide low pressure tuber tyres for maxing out the comfort on this bike. Now, the Contend is an endurance focused bike, so similar to their more expensive Defy, so taller head tube, shorter reach, to make it a more relaxed, easier bike to ride. If you're newer to cycling, you do a long ride and you want that comfort over a more aggressive race bike setup. So a really good option for beginners and people new to cycling trying to ramp up the mileage and really get into the sport, whether racing or doing grand fondos, a really good entry. Going to look after you on those long rides, and just a fantastic package overall really. Next up, we have the Trek Domane AL2 disc. This model costs £975 and it's based loosely, more or less, on the carbon fibre bike of the same name, which goes SL and SLR and RSL, and they just launched a new version of that carbon model, linked out down below in case you missed it. So this bike has the same name, very similar look as well, and the same endurance focused geometry, so longer wheelbase, more slack angles for comfort and ease of handling on long rides and on rough roads. We don't have all the features you get on a carbon fibre bike, but it's still a really good looking bike and a good option at its money. with the exception of the group set. Sadly, on this bike, you only get a Shimano Claris 8-speed mechanical shifting group set with mechanical disc brakes as well. Now, on its own, there's nothing wrong with Shimano Claris, a fantastic group set, and does inherit the ergonomics and the shifting performance of those high-level group sets, but it's not a patch on the 105 on that Giant I showed you earlier. And then everything else on the bike is Bontrager branded, as you'd expect from Trek. So handlebar, bar tape, seat post, saddle, and so on. And then the Affinity wheels, which are tubeless ready with 32mm wide tyres fitted as standard. Decathlon's Van Rysel is a really interesting and a potential good offering at this price point. So the EDRAF is an aluminium road bike, and we have a very rare thing on a road bike at this price point, a Campagnolo Centaur mechanical shifting group set. So the 2x11 speed group set. We also have the company's own alloy wheels with Michelin 25mm wide tyres. So a Campag group set on any bike of any price is very rare these days with the Shimano and SRAM dominance we are seeing. So this bike definitely bucks the trend by speccing the Centaur 11-speed mechanical shifting group set on a bike of this price. We then have a really smart looking aluminium frame with some nice details like the full external cable routing, so easy maintenance for doing the servicing at home of this bike in the future. And the bike is also approved for use in UCI road races as well, just in case you might want to turn up to a road race on the bike, although I think they're pretty unlikely to be fair. The bike has endurance focused geometry, as most bikes at the price tend to, and that's because most people buying a bike at £1,000 are probably less experienced and want a bit more comfort than a aggressive race bike would offer, and it makes a lot of sense on a bike like this at a price point. If you do want more of a race bike though than a sit up and beg endurance focused bike, then a Specialized Allez is a pure race bike. Based loosely on a Tarmac SL7 in terms of geometry, this is a really interesting option. And right here in the UK, right now, their Allez is reduced from just over £1,100 to £999, so it fits nicely into the video. First up, it comes in 3 colours, which is fantastic, and none of the other bikes here come in 3 colours, so you can personalise, customise the bike to suit your preference. And then the frame is a really smart E5 aluminium frame with nice smooth wheels, and it inherits the design language, shall we say, of the more expensive Tarmac SL7, so shape of tube profiles and a dropped rear stays as well. So if you want that world champs winning bike but on a budget, this might be the best option. A really nice feature on this bike, and definitely worth mentioning because you can't really see it from first inspection, is that we have a full carbon fibre fork. So the visible part of the fork and then the steerer tube inside the head tube, which you can't see. On most other bikes in this video, we have an aluminium steerer. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, of course. It just means a bigger weight penalty over a full carbon fork, and means this frame set on its own is potentially lighter than other bikes in the video, and does on paper give this bike real long-term upgrade potential. And that's good because the group set on this bike isn't fantastic, not nearly a patch on other bikes in this video. Because where Specialized really struggles is on the specification of the bike. Certainly on paper at least compared to other bikes in this video. So we have a Shimano Soro group set. Now on its own, as with Tiagra I mentioned earlier, there's nothing wrong with this group set. It works really well, reliable shifting, light shifting, good ergonomics, everything we expect from a Shimano. All that trickle down benefits group sets at this price point. But you don't get as many ratios and you don't have the weight as low as Tiagra or 105 on other bikes in this video. But the frame might offer some comfort if you are looking at this bike, because it potentially looks like a better upgrade option with that full carbon fibre fork, as I mentioned earlier. But then a redeeming factor are the mudguard and rack mounts, so good for winter riding with mudguards or commuting with some panniers on as well. So quite a versatile bike. Race it at the weekend, ride to work Monday to Friday. We should include a Canyon in this video, but Canyon doesn't actually do a bike at £1,000. Their cheapest road bike is the Endurace 6 rim brake, which costs £1,149. Now the Endurace, as you might know, is an endurance bike, hence the name, so comfort focused geometry, taller, shorter, longer wheelbase and so on. We then get a Shimano Tiagra 10-speed group set, so a fantastic option, not 105 but not far off. And all the parts on the bike are branded, so no cutting corners here. We have fulcrum wheels, we have a Saddleback saddle. So although it's over our budget by £150, it still looks a really good option. Really smart frame, wide tire clearance, and a decent group set as well. Now there are a few other options to throw into the mix as well, but they don't quite fit into that £1,000 price bracket. They're either below or over, which shows just how hard I guess it is for a bike brand to get a bike to £1,000 without making any concessions to the specification or the performance of that bike. So Boardman, very popular bike brand here in the UK, named after Chris Boardman, of course, and they don't actually have a £1,000 option, but they have one below it and one above it. So firstly, for £850, we had the Boardman SLR 8.8 disc with an aluminium frame and a Shimano Tiagra 10-speed group set and Textro mechanical disc brakes. So it looks pretty good if you want to save a few £100s. But then if you want to spend a bit more, we have the SLR 8.9 carbon with a carbon fibre frame and a Shimano 105 11-speed group set, but they cut corner with an FSA chain set. This bike also has mudguard mounts and space for 28mm wide tyres, and it is a modern looking frame, aero details, aero profile tubes and a drop rear stays. So not quite £1,000, but if you can stretch your budget to just over, this looks a really good option. So a carbon frame and a Shimano 105 group set makes it really good value for money. Not quite as good value as that Focus KO from way back in 2007, but still pretty impressive nonetheless. So hopefully a nice selection of bikes to help you spend your £1,000 budget as smartly as possible. Let me know which bikes I've missed or which you are considering by leaving a comment down below. And if you want to spend a bit more and you have a budget of between £2,000 and £5,000, then do check out this video right here.